Hello, and welcome to the Cisco FireJumper Visibility and Enforcement Competency Proof of Performance short demo flow. This short demo flow is a requirement of Stage 3 of the Visibility and Enforcement Competency area of the FireJumper program. The first thing I'd like to do is log into dcloud. You can reach dcloud by going to dcloud.cisco.com. You should see the page that you're looking at right now. At the top right-hand corner, you can essentially see who you're logged in as. If you need to log in, make sure you log in with your CCO ID and password. You can select the different theaters or different data centers that might be around the world. Obviously, you want to pick the one that's closest to you for the best response time. Once you're logged into dcloud, I essentially will then go to Catalog. And under Catalog, I will select Instant Demo under Content Categories. Under Solutions, I will select Security. At the upper right-hand corner under Search Catalog, I then will type in DNA. By doing this, we'll pull up something what I would call the Cisco Digital Network Architecture for Partners version 1 Instant Demo. This particular link, once I click View, will show us all the instant demos and products that we need from our internal instant demo portal. For example, you'll see here we have Step 1, read the story guides. Step 2, follow the video on demand walkthroughs. Step 3, run the demos. So very quickly, we'll click on the Stealthwatch story guide. By doing that, it's very important that you understand on the story guide that we need to retrieve the username and password credentials for the Stealthwatch Management Console demo on page 5. But there's a lot of other uses for this particular PDF Stealthwatch story guide. If you have intentions of doing a full-blown demo of Stealthwatch or Stealthwatch Management Console, feel free to review the story guide to get a better understanding on how to give a presentation or demonstration of Stealthwatch. And then on stage 2, you have video on demand walkthroughs of that particular story guide. So if you click on the Stealthwatch video on demand, we'll then present a video from Sales Connect that goes over the presentation of the Stealthwatch Management Console. Let's go back to the DNA and go to Step 3. By clicking on Stealthwatch, that will launch the actual demo of Stealthwatch Management Console. Cisco Stealthwatch is an anomalous behavior detection system which collects and analyzes NetFlow, IPFix, SFlow, and other types of data to detect problems which might impact a network security or performance. Quickly detect zero-day malware, insider threats like command and control communications, and data exfiltration and other sophisticated attacks. What we're looking at here on top are the alarming hosts. You'll notice that we have various different types of indexes, and those indexes might range from policy violation to anomalies, exploitation, data hoarding, DDoS target, DDoS source, exploitation, command and control, recon, target index, and concern index. I am just going to go over a couple that I feel are the most important. CI, which stands for concern index, is an event that is triggered by a source host. It results in a concern index alarm. This tracks source hosts that have exceeded a threshold of alarms. And you can click on this particular number here, which is 5, and it will drill down into an alarm index that are all hosts that are an actual concern or have triggered the alarm index, concern index. Let's skip over to target index, even though it reflects a 0. But if target index was populated, that would mean that it tracks inside hosts that have been a recipient of more than an acceptable number of scans or other malicious attacks. And the same thing, you can click on any of these areas to drill down further and to investigate information according to that particular alarm type. Recon. It indicates the presence of unauthorized and potentially malicious scans using TCP and UDP and being run against your organization host. And last but not least, we'll go over here to exploitation. This tracks the inside and outside host to which an abnormal amount of data has been transferred. If a host triggers a number of these events exceeding a configurable threshold, it results in this particular alarm. And underneath that, you will notice that we have different widgets from top alarming host, identifying the host with the most indexes being triggered. And you notice on this one we have data hoarding, recon, exploitation, and concern index. And as mentioned before, you can click on any of these hosts to get further information about that particular host and its alarm types. To the right of that, you have alarms by type and identifying the event count based on the different types of alarms for that particular date and host combining to make a summary of all these events. And then to the right of that, you have today's alarms that have happened in the last 24 hours. You can notice that we have high traffic. We have suspect long flows, worm propagation, suspect data loss, recon, data hoarding. And again, you can drill down into any of these particular pie charts in order to get more information. Below that, you'll notice that we have flow trends and top applications. Top applications can be very, very helpful to identify flows of traffic and applications that may not be useful or allowed on your environment. For example, we can notice here that we might have a large amount of SSH traffic that might be going inbound from the outside. That might be a concern of traffic you may not be allowing within your environment and need to further investigate that. To the left here, we have flow collection trend. The flow collection trend allows us to identify the flow trends that we have within our environment. So essentially how this works is that we have a flow collector, and that flow collector collects various different types of flows from different devices. For example, NetFlow, SFlow, IPFix, or we also have devices such as flow sensors that you can span traffic to that particular solution and have them displayed onto the Stealthwatch management console. By viewing this particular flow trend, we can easily identify what might be abnormal or something anomalous to this particular network. We create a baseline time over time on what we consider normal traffic patterns. And at any given time, we could drill down into something that might look abnormal and identify those flows. We treat this type of solution more like a phone book, where we keep a record of who is identified to what device and be able to look at all the flow records and conversations associated to that particular flow. This might be grand in just performance, capacity planning, also in security to identify the problems that you might have within worm propagation, data hoarding, or maybe someone doing malicious attacks within your environment that may not be identified as an actual signature type of attack. So the next thing I'd like to show you is how to do an actual flow search. So the top menu on the very top, we have dashboards, monitor, analyze, and jobs. Monitor, we have hosts, host groups, and users. Under analyze, we have flow search, save searches, save search, host search, and under jobs, we have jobs management. What we want to look at is something called flow search. By doing flow search, we want to use the example of maybe a network that should not be able to communicate to the outside world. For example, there's a lot of compliance reasons why you may have a network that should not communicate to the internet or may not be able to communicate with other hosts outside of its VLAN. For example, PCI compliance in the Americas, or maybe some type of gaming network that's known around the world. Why would I even have the internet communicate to my gaming systems? That might be something of a concern. So what we have here is search type, time range, and search name. We can identify and change the search name if needed to. We can change it from flow, top applications, top ports, top protocols. But for right now, we're gonna look at flows. Let's change it to maybe perhaps the last half hour. And we can change the host group, which is the source group. We're going to look at inside host and for machines. Machines might be my machines on my network, maybe machines that are doing day-to-day type of tasks. So we'll kind of put that in my source group. Under the peer, we want to select a group of machines that maybe they should not be talking to. Maybe like a gaming network or a compliant type of network that should not communicate with anyone outside that. We want to be able to have the exclude, because we want to exclude all conversations except for the ones that are communicating to the inside host, to what I would call maybe the control systems. And in an IoT type of environment, control systems could be systems that are monitoring factories or monitoring gas valves and et cetera, something that maybe should never communicate to the outside world. In other areas, maybe gaming systems or networks that should not communicate to any other device except for within its own VLAN. We'll click Done at the very bottom. At the upper right-hand corner, you have various different options. You can load the save search, a previous search that we saved, or save this particular search. But for now, we'll click Search. By clicking on Search, we are now taking that information and looking at the database of the Stealthwatch Management Console and trying to identify any flows that we might see that associate to the filtered information that we identified. As you can see here, we have no results have returned, and this search has been processed and is 100% complete. By doing that, I feel that we have passed an audit or a compliance check according to what we need to do. We've identified that no conversations that we're monitoring on this particular network have communicated to those control systems. So if you are going through an audit or just need to be able to identify that no one's communicating to particular devices on your network, this would be a great way to identify that. Moving on is that we want to go ahead and look at particular hosts within the environment. So I'll click on Monitor and then Host, and by doing that, we'll have a list of the different hosts that we have within this particular environment. Now that we can see we click on Monitor and Host, we can see the different types of hosts associated to this area. We see alarms and filter based on any of the different types of alarms that we have here on the left-hand side, from data hoarding, concern index, recon, policy violation, and the one that we clicked on in particular was exportation. You'll notice in this list that we have a list of different addresses that have triggered the alarm under EX. You'll see that they range from highest to lowest. The one particular one that's in particular to me that's the most high concerning is the 10.201.3.149. And why is because it kind of ranges in different areas. For example, I have concern index, recon, as well as data hoarding and exploitation. So I'm going to click on this particular host to do a further investigation of this particular host. And as you notice on the top, again, we're displaying the different host report for this particular device. We have concern index, recon, data hoarding, and exploitation associated to this particular host as far as alarm types that have been exceeded. Here to the left-hand side, we have host summary. We can identify the host IP address. Is this an actual active or inactive host currently? The host groups that this is a member of right now, policies, and the MAC address associated to it. We also have traffic by peer host group, and we can identify who it's communicating to from different host groups. One thing that I noticed that is a concern is maybe China. I do recognize that United Kingdom, Netherlands, and France are part of our remote offices, but Russia and China are not. So we might want to further investigate to identify why is it communicating to these countries and why does it have a large amount of bandwidth and traffic going to these particular areas. As you can see by highlighting one of these areas, you can identify that it has 3.48 gigabytes of traffic that has communicated to China. That is a concern to me. To the right of that, we have alarms by type for the last 7 days, the event count, and the different types of alarms that have been associated to this particular host. Underneath that, you'll also notice that we have users and sessions. You'll notice that we have a username associated to this particular device and MAC address. That allows me to easily identify what Windows Active Directory username is associated to this flow or this particular host. By getting that information, we're using Identity Services Engine, which is a solution by Cisco that does access management, access identification, and network access control. This can tie into ICE to easily allow us passively to get the interactive username associated to a particular device by its MAC address and IP. To the right of that, you'll notice that we have application traffic. We can look at internal and external traffic associated to the application traffic associated with a particular host. We identify that the biggest amount of traffic that we have could be HTTPS, total of 8.5 gigabytes. Being sent is 3.7, received 4.8. We can look at the traffic patterns over a period of time and identify at what time of the day it went in and out. You can see here at 3:12 a.m. outbound had 1 gig, inbound 2 gigs, almost 3. And we can drill down at that flow record at that particular time to see who is communicating. And my best guess is either Russia or China. And if we need to look at flows or history, we can click on the host summary, click on flows, and allow us to do a flow search for this particular host. Again, you have search type, time range, search name. You'll see that it automatically filtered to the particular host that I was drilled into. Let's change it from 5 minutes to last 8 hours and click on search. By doing that, we now have identified the problem host, and we're now investigating the different types of conversations it had over a period of time. You can see by looking at the screen that your results are processing, and that is taking some time to go ahead and get that information from the database and display it on the screen. Here, what we're looking at is flow search, the start and the end time, duration. We also have the protocols, the groups that are associated to, connection appliance, the connection bytes, peer IP address, and also the peer bytes. You can drill down into any of these hosts and identify further information, for example, packets, packet rate, bytes, byte rate, percent transferred, and also the totals associated to that flow record. And you could go further into all the different types of flows that this particular host has associated itself over a period of time and allow us to easily identify the different trends that it's had over a period of time. So you can easily repeat this search again and maybe search for the peer group China or Russia and to be able to identify what type of trends it's having to this particular host. This concludes the short demo flow of the Cisco Stealthwatch product that's a part of the visibility and enforcement competency area of the FireJumper program. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much.